So I'm going to explain and go into more depth as to why young men of today, no matter what region you are in, whether that's the US, the West, the UK, Europe, Asia, the dynamic is exactly the same. Especially in a more globalized world that we are now living in more than ever compared to 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, the dating market has become a lot more difficult. You know, I've experienced this firsthand. I know experiences from friends. I know experiences in just our age category, and just alluding to what I mentioned previously of that astounding, staggering statistic of men aged between 18 to 30 and 66% of them being single is absolutely ludicrous. And, you know, most people aren't aware of that statistic, but when you delve into it a bit more and you start to ask why, and you start to ask a few more questions regarding it, the pieces start to come together. Well, at least for me anyway. For me, it starts to make a lot more sense, and obviously I can speak from personal experience. And I'm sure you guys can attest to this. It feels like it becomes a lot harder to find a woman, and I don't want to be, it's not about being nostalgic or anything like that, but it's about having standards to find a woman, I guess, deemed to be on your level, because the issue that we have is with a lot of women, their options have expanded. You know, back in the day, whether it's the 50s or 60s, let's take our grandparents or even our parents, depends on what area of the world you come from, that they might have gone to the only primary school in that village. I remember my father talking to me about his days back in the village in East Turkey, and there was only one school in the area. It wasn't like where I grew up in London. There was a primary school, a middle school in every single bloody corner. He just went to one primary school. Everyone graduated from that primary school and they moved on to middle school, and there was only one in the local area. So everyone knew everyone. The cousins knew everyone. Your surname belongs to this area, and oh, I know that person, he's got that surname. Everyone was interconnected. They were within a sort of a very small region, a very small local area, and everything was easier back then because it almost, by the time you reach 15 or 16, I'm not obviously promoting or stating that was the case, but it was almost as if it was arranged in terms of marriage and who your life partner was going to be, because you basically knew the person you were going to marry pretty much before the age of 18. You knew who it was going to be, not necessarily family linked, but you knew what the case was. Your ambition back then as a guy would be, I want to get with perhaps the richest or the best looking girl in my local area. Fast forward to today, the issue that we have is you're not competing it with your village. You're competing with the entire globe, with over 8 billion people that we have on the planet. And whether there's a population collapse or a further population expansion on the horizon, that's a completely separate discussion that we can have at a different stage. And I'll give my thoughts and opinions on that anyway. But sticking with this and not deviating too much, you're competing against 8 billion plus people on the planet. Obviously, bearing in mind, roughly half will be female. So you're competing with 4 billion plus other men for basically a small portion of women, because let's be honest, every guy wants the creme de la creme. Every guy wants the best option he can possibly get. He wants a girl that's beautiful. He wants a girl that comes from a nice family background, very well educated, well mannered, polite. Most guys, especially if you're on self-development, we're all looking for a specific archetype, a specific niche of woman. The problem is, I feel as though, and a lot of guys have this same opinion, they feel as though that pool is getting ever so small. That pool is getting smaller, and the competition is only getting bigger. And that's why I think young men are becoming more single than ever, because I think what a lot of young men are doing, and of course there's other reasons and a multitude of factors that actually led to this as well, with things like I mentioned, pornography and just social isolation. But in addition to that, I think a lot of men are also choosing to be single because they have the mentality of, well, if I can't get the woman, I guess, that is deemed to be on my level, then why am I going to waste my time to be in a relationship? I may as well continue to focus on myself, or if I'm not going to do that, I prefer to be in social isolation. I prefer to be alone and carry on, rather than have all that stress, all that drama that perhaps a woman may bring or a certain type of woman will bring. They would rather avoid that and wait and wait and wait. And that's why between a certain age category, most men choose to be single, but that isn't necessarily a good thing. I just think that is a possible explanation as to why young men just are remaining single more than ever today. Why young men are more depressed more than ever today. I feel as though, and there's a famous quote that was said by a wise man a very long time ago, and excuse me because I'm going to be paraphrasing, I don't remember it exactly, but it goes along the lines of this: you have to work 20 times harder than your granddad did to find and attract a woman that is 5 times worse than your grandma. Somewhere along the lines of that. I think you guys may have heard that as well. It's a very famous quote. And I think it ties in and it aligns in beautifully with this. You can be on self-development. You can work your ass off. You can be dedicated to your craft. But there is no guarantee that you're going to attract the woman that you want. There's a high likelihood. It, of course, boosts your chances. But with that pool becoming ever so small, and I feel as though the direction that we're heading in terms of the mentality of humans in general, not just women, I think it's the same for men. The mentality in general, the standards that are set, things like social media. I think social media has a huge impact, a massive, massive impact, because as I said, that is one of the biggest contributing factors, the catalyst behind the globalist expansion, which is that women, obviously now that we live in a globalized world, women are looking for their best option, and it's ever so easier for them. You know, a girl that was in a little village in the north of Finland, in Scandinavia, or in Norway, she now has access to the richest guys in New York because of Instagram, because of social media. But prior to that, she would have no chance of ever having access or ever having any sort of communication with this wealthy multi-millionaire from New York. You find that now that 19, 20-year-old guys are struggling to compete with women their age, because you've got a 25-year-old who's well established, who's got a good career, who's got a nice car, who's got his own property, paying his own mortgage, living outside of parents, who's a lot more mature, who can actually grow a beard without it being patchy, compared to a 19-year-old who's skinny, awkward, scruffy, he's got a patchy beard, still lives at home with parents, doesn't know what he wants to do in life, a little bit more immature. That guy has no chance. That guy has absolutely no chance. And I think that's a big reason as to why men are staying single, especially in the younger years, because they're finding that the quality woman they want, they're just not able to lure. They're just not able to attract. And I know this firsthand, me being, you know, back in high school many years ago. And I know I had a friend of mine that was dating this girl who was in his class, who he found very attractive. And the relationship didn't come into fruition after 3-4 months, because she ended up dating a guy 2 years older. At the time we were sort of 18. She ended up dating a guy that was 2 years older, and he had his own car, he could grow a beard, he had a job on the side, he had a side hustle, he was just moving out of parents. And he literally said to himself, how can I compete with this? How can I possibly compete with this? And this is the issue that we have. It's where young men are now just deciding to remain single because either they can't attract the woman that they want, or they don't want the stress or drama that comes with it. The dating market has become so, I guess, saturated, a lot more difficult than it was back in sort of 40, 50, 60 years. It wasn't as easy back then, when you can just grow up in a village and everyone knew each other and you had one school, one middle school, and that was the end of that. The chapter was closed. Here it's completely different. You are left to your own devices. The onus is on you to get the job done, which again has its own benefits and positives. I'm not saying it's all negative, but that is why I keep stressing it is more important than ever. It is more important now that you put the work in, because you don't have another choice. Putting the work in doesn't even guarantee you any of this, but putting the work in puts you at a much better advantage than your competition. It puts you at a much better advantage to attract the woman that you want. But what it does guarantee is if you don't put the work in, I can assure you that you will never attract the high quality woman that you've always dreamed of. And that is a fact that I can guarantee. So hopefully this video has made sense to you, just giving you a more in-depth explanation of course, the astounding statistic that I alluded to in my previous video, just to give you guys more of an explanation and just a bit more motivation to understand that, look, if you don't put the work in, this will be the ramification, this will be the consequence. So if you did enjoy the video, don't forget to smash the like button, subscribe, hit the bell notification, and I'll see all of you guys for my next video. Peace.